take on three Russian talents, Karjakin, Nepo and Dubov. On the screen we see the current FIDE president, Arkady Dvorkovich, asking the photographers to be a little bit away. And it's a game where each world champion will make one move and one Russian talent will respond back, and so on. As you can see, Karjakin and Nepo have already become challengers, and Dubov is one of the most creative players in the world of chess. Vladimir Kramnik opens the game with 1 d4. Dubov goes knight f6, Vichy goes c4, e6. Karpov, true to his style, goes knight to f3. And Karjakin loves to play the queen's India and goes b6. Kramnik says it's my move and goes g3, bishop to b7. Vichy now plays his bishop to g2. Check on b4. Interesting line. It's blocked. And c5. This is quite a positional system. White takes on b4 and gives black the double pawns. Vichy quickly castles. And Nepo also castles. Karpov plays his queen to d3. You could also play your queen to b3 there. Queen d3, d6. And now Kramnik goes knight bd2. The b4 pawn is protected. And Vichy instantly hits the pawns with a3. Of course, if white takes, black takes on a3, white will take back and the b6 pawn will be a weakness. So Nepo doesn't know what to play. It's like, okay, I don't know this system. Let's go knight a6. It's Karpov's move. He asks whether it's his move. Yes, and knight to h4. Look at Kramnik. He's like, Karpov, you can bank on him to be a positional genius. Queen e7. Just connecting the rooks. And now it's Kramnik's move. He plays his pawn to e4. This is a very committal decision because black can go e5 at any point and get the dark squares for himself, especially the c5 square. But right now the knight will jump to f5, and that is why Dubov goes rook f d8. Very calm move. And Vichy also plays his rook f to d1. Other rook moves to c8. I like how Nepo makes his moves. He just plays his moves very lightly, while many players press it very hard on the board. Kramnik and Vichy discussing a few things. Rook comes to c1. You can see that players checking the board carefully. They don't want to blunder. g6 is a nice move by Karjakin because oh, and look at Kramnik. He's trying to look at the board. Well, usually they sit and play, so standing and playing on a chessboard is never easy. But g6 has a very clear idea. You want to play e5 and not give the f5 square to the white knight. Kramnik now plays his knight to f1. And e5 by Dubov. Things heating up now. The knight on a6 is very happy. It's going to get the c5 square for itself. If you push the pawn to d5, the c5 square is in black's control. Anand plays knight to e3 and Nepo takes the pawn on d4. Here queen d4 can be met with knight c5 and knight d5. A mistake by Karpov because now you can take. This is actually advantage to black now. Karjakin instantly took on d5. He knows that black is better because after taking the bishop, which you have to, now the knight will jump to c5. Dubov simply puts his knight on c5 and you can't take the d4 pawn because knight b3 is a fork. So Vichy plays his queen to f3. It wasn't Karjakin's move perhaps, it was Nepo's move. And so Nepo says, okay, I'll make the move, but the move is pretty good. No problem with it. Karpov knows that the position is pretty bad, but what to do? He takes on b4, recaptures back. Black has complete control on the dark squares as well as the d3 pawn is pretty dangerous. And now Kramnik plays bishop f1 so as to pick up the pawn on d3. Even if you win that pawn, still the position is very difficult. Queen e5, Dubov hits the b2 pawn. Vichy unhappy to make that move out to b1, but well, what to do? The b2 pawn is important. b4 would have become a passer. And now Nepo thinks for his move very carefully because he knows there has to be something here. Black has activated all his pieces nicely. And he plays his rook to e8. A very nice move, getting the open file for his rook. Karpov asks whether it's his move. Yes, it is. Taking the d3 pawn looks fine. And Anatoly does just that. He picks up the pawn. And now Sergey plays his queen to g5. Even though white is a pawn up, he's under a lot of pressure. Bishop goes back to f1. Now Dubov goes knight g4. He wants to relocate his knight to e5, where it will be well placed. Vishy touches his h4 knight. I mean, he wants to play that knight, but then just thinks a bit more. And there, he plays his bishop to h3. Quite happy with the move, because now, at least, the knight cannot move. As such, c8 rook could be hanging, so h5. And Karpov plays his rook to d4. f5 is played. And planning to put the knight on e5. Kramnik offers the queen trade. Now it's Dubov's chance. Well, taking the queen looks like a good move, because after that the rook can sweep into the 7th rank with rook e2. But we all know Dubov. He loves to attack, and so he brings his queen back to f6. White's pieces are slightly weaker, but Vishy takes on g4, h takes g4. And now Karpov makes a safe move, rook a d1. Brings the rook. Sergey improves his king's position. The rook can now swing to h8. Also, a threat could be g5 at the right time. h3 is played and rook e5, defending the f5 pawn, threatening g5. There's really nothing much that can be done here. So Anand takes the pawn on g4, sacrificing a piece. Nepo happily takes it. g5, it's a fork now. Karpov comes back. Well, the knight is lost. This seems like a totally losing position for the legends, but Kramnik fights hard. He puts the pawn on g5. Dubov simply picks it up. And now rook takes h4. If we count the pawns, black has 4, white has 5. So it's actually just one pawn for a piece. It's a safe position to resign. But look at Kramnik. He's like, let's fight. Let's fight. Let's not give up. Anything is possible. Is it really possible against such talented players like Karjakin, Nepo and Dubov? Let's see. Knight to d7. Sergey reroutes his knight. Maybe the rook moves and then the knight sits on e5. Rook to h5. Kramnik makes his move like with a flourish, rook h5. Now the queen can simply move back to g6. But Dubov senses some tactics there. King g2 and Nepo pushes his knight to e5. This is a blunder, because now if rook takes g5, knight f3, there is rook takes f5 check. Karpov says, I don't see the tactics here. He takes here. Now if you capture the rook back, then the queen is saved. Oh, rook g1 check. Karjakin sees this tactic. Now if you take the rook, knight f3 check, and the g5 rook is hanging. So king h3, what a move by Kramnik. He saves his rook. Rook h8 check. And now what do? The king is almost checkmated, but Vishy there, hovering over the d4 rook, moves it to h4. Rook takes h4, and now an important final move here, which is g takes h4. And believe it or not, the game is lost for black, because now rook takes f5 check, and you win back the knight. Look at Kramnik, just chops off the pawn. And from a completely minus position, the legends are now winning. The world champions, very alert, take the knight. Now 2 pawns up. This rook endgame, Karpov can win even in his sleep. Of course, Vishy Kramnik know that this is completely winning. b3, you can see Karpov just making the move without any worry. King moves ahead, king g4. I like how different players move their pieces in a different way. Nepo just pushing the pawn, Anand playing h5. And now Karpov will play very softly. C takes b5. Rook comes to c5. And now Kramnik, the person who makes his moves with the greatest of strength. King g5. If you take on d5, there is rook f5. So he takes on b5. Pawn pushes on. King g6. h7 is threatened, followed by rook f8 check. So rook goes back. Here actually h7. Rook h7, rook f8, king h7 could be possible, but it could lead to some complications. And so Kramnik decides to play it simple. I think he doesn't want to push the pawn. Make sure the final calculations are in order. No stalemates there. Rook f6 he plays to attack the d6 pawn. And rook to g7. Oh, if you take the rook, final trick, it would have been a stalemate. But Vishy instantly moves king f5. Nepo saying even if I have four moves, perhaps it's difficult to win. I don't know. But yeah, rook c7. Karpov simply picks up the pawn. Rook to c3. And now Kramnik's move makes the last move, king to g6. Everyone's laughing. There's no check on g3. Dubov resigns. The legends have won the game. What a battle. What a battle. Give it up for these great players.